Hello, and welcome to the Learn It webinar series. Today's topic is going to be SharePoint sites. My name is Kara Clifford, and I'm here to talk to you about what is SharePoint, understanding SharePoint sites, using SharePoint lists and libraries. I'd also like to invite you guys to stick around. At the very end, we're going to offer a special promotion on live instructor-led classes here at Learn It on SharePoint, and you can attend those either live in our San Francisco office or anywhere remote live online. In addition, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay tuned for more trainings like this on all information technology for end users and additional topics. So, what is SharePoint? Microsoft SharePoint is a browser-based collaboration and document management platform, and it's produced by Microsoft. Organizations use SharePoint to create websites. You can use it as a secure place to store, organize, share, and access information from almost any device. All you need is a web browser, such as Internet Explorer, Chrome, or Firefox, or even the new Microsoft Edge browser, which is what I'll be using today. SharePoint Online, specifically, is a cloud-based service hosted by Microsoft for businesses of all sizes. Instead of installing and deploying SharePoint Server on premises, any business can subscribe to an Office 365 plan or to a standalone SharePoint Online service. The employees can create sites, share documents and information with colleagues, partners, and customers. So we're going to take a look at a SharePoint site right now. This is a SharePoint site that I created out of the box using the standard team site template. I'm going to move into SharePoint now, and I invite you to join me. So here we have a SharePoint site. On our site right now, you'll notice that it has navigation along the left-hand side. We've got things like our home, our notebooks, documents, site contents, and our recycle bin. Up along the top, we have our standard Office 365, so I can navigate to my email or to Microsoft Word or Excel online. But this is the home page of a SharePoint site, and this is where you'll typically start off for any organization. Now, one of the benefits of SharePoint is that you can customize any element of it. But as I mentioned, this is an out-of-the-box with zero customization and no documents or content added at this point. From the home page of a SharePoint site, we have our news feed and our documents. These are app parts being displayed on the home page. Up at the top right corner, I can easily share this site, giving people access to it. I can follow it so that newsfeed shows information showing from this site, or I can go in and edit this page, including adding pictures, changing the color scheme, and more. We're going to go ahead and create some different apps, but before I do that, I just want to show you how to get into the site contents. From the quick launch along the left, I can access site contents, or I can go to the settings icon at the top right and access site contents from this section as well. In SharePoint, site contents are going to show you what currently lives on the site. And as I mentioned, in this out-of-the-box team site, it comes with a standard collection of apps, including a document library, a microfeed, Power BI access, site assets, and site pages. Down along the bottom, you'll even see I can create subsites. So I can have sites for a department, and then within that department, I can have subsites for teams or projects. I'm going to go ahead and begin by adding different contacts through a SharePoint list. To do this, I'm going to select Add an App. Now, there's a number of different apps, and apps can be things like lists and libraries, which we'll be creating today, but you can also get apps from the Microsoft Store. Things like time clocks and many other different third-party applications that help make SharePoint more useful within your organization. I'm going to select Add an App, and here I'll be brought to a list of apps templates for libraries, tasks, wiki pages, links, discussion boards. You can see there's quite a few. In addition, I can also navigate to the SharePoint store to get even more applications. I'm going to start off by adding a basic contact list. This is helpful for creating contacts and giving your employees a place to go to find vendor contacts or employee contacts. And I'm going to first start off by naming it. Now, one thing that's very important in SharePoint when creating lists or libraries is to think about the naming convention. When I name this site or this list within this site, it's actually creating a URL for every page. So I'm going to just call this contacts, and I'm going to leave it all in lowercase. If I go into the advanced options, it brings me into a place where I can put in the name and a description of this. I'm going to go ahead and say the description is Learn It Employee Contacts. Then I'll say create. It's going to bring me directly to this list, and I have a lot of different options to customize this information, but I'm going to just leave it out of the box for now. But if you had specific internal information that you wanted, such as an employee identification number or a building number that the employee works, it's very easy to add that to this view. To add a new contact, I'm going to simply select the new item up at the top. But I could also go to the Items tab on the ribbon and choose New Items. Just like in most Microsoft applications, there's multiple ways to do the same thing. I'll select this plus sign to add a new contact, and here I can move into the contact form. Now, when I look at this form, I see that only one bit of information, one field of information is required, and that's the last name. I'm going to go ahead and put in my last name, my first name, my email address, my company, and I'll go ahead and also put in the city that I'm in. Once I've added the appropriate information to my contact card, again, I can require more, but for right now, the only thing required is the last name. I'm going to go ahead and say save. This will bring me back to my list, and I can see that I have my contact information displayed. Now, some of the information I displayed is not showing up, and I have these columns of information that don't have data in them. Anytime you add new information to a SharePoint list or library, you get that little green asterisk showing that this was new. To modify the contact card that I just created, I can use the ellipses, or I can place a check mark next to this contact and choose Edit. If I use the ellipses here, the more options, I can edit the item, delete the item, view the item, or go into some of the more advanced options like creating workflows and managing permissions for this contact. I'm going to go ahead and leave all of the defaults here, but I am going to go ahead and make some edits. I'm going to edit the view of this particular list, and this is one of the more powerful features within SharePoint, is the ability to customize the information that you see. From the List tab of the ribbon, or from the ellipses up at the top, I can choose to modify this view. When I modify the view, it brings me into the view settings for this particular list, and here I'm in the All Contacts view of the contact list that I created. Because I don't have any information in business or home phone, I'm going to remove that information from my view. I'm also going to add the city because I added that information when I was filling out my contact card. Now, there's a lot of other options within modifying this view, such as sorting and filtering. We can create additional views, but I'm going to scroll to the bottom and select OK. Once I select OK, it moves me back to my contact list, and I can see that city has now been added as a field and that business and home phone number have been removed. When I go in and add a new contact, I'm going to go ahead and say save. And now as soon as that contact is added, I can see that I have a new contact, and now both myself and my colleague are listed in this contact list. Now I notice that Tim's email address is missing, and I have a few different ways where I can edit that. I can go to his specific contact card and choose Edit, or I can select the Edit button up at the top. This is a newer feature in SharePoint, and what's great about this is it puts my list within this table mode. I didn't have to create a separate view, and I can go in here and I can add Tim's email address, or I can change the city, or add the rest of his last name or first name. So modifications and information are very simple. If I didn't have a company name in for Tim, I could also use the autofill handle, that little plus sign at the bottom right, to copy that company name down, adding it to Tim's contact card. So again, this really makes adding metadata, an important part of SharePoint, very simple. I'm going to go ahead and stop editing by clicking the Stop Editing button right up at the top, and it takes me out of that edit mode, giving me just my 2 contacts. Now, notice that my contact is still listed as, it's not capitalized, it's not properly capitalized, and I did that so that when I created this site on this contact card, it kept my URL as simple as possible. I'm going to go ahead and edit this contact name and change the name. I'm going to change it to Learn It Contacts. And I'm going to do this by going to the List tab of the ribbon. From the List tab of the ribbon, I'll go ahead and select List Settings. And here I can go into the list name, description, and navigation. I can properly capitalize this or add Learn It. And I can tell it to display on the Quick Launch. The Quick Launch is this section over on the left-hand side, and it makes it easy for employees, colleagues to find the most important information on the SharePoint site. Once I click Save, that contact is updated with the appropriate name, and it's now displaying on my Quick Launch along the left. I'm going to go ahead and navigate back to the home page, and from the home page, I'm going to go ahead and add another list type. Now remember, we add list types through the site contents. So from the site contents, I'm going to select Add an App. And from the Add an App section, I'm going to add a calendar. Calendars are really useful ways to keep the team updated on important information. You can create calendars in SharePoint for projects, for departments, for events for the public. Calendars work just like any list, and I can simply add an event coming up, or I can go ahead and put our YouTube webinar here if I want. And I can also go into many different views within the calendar. On the Calendar tab of the ribbon, I have multiple different views, such as all events or current events, or the default calendar view, which shows it in this gridded calendar format. So just like contacts, calendar lists are very similar. You add events, you can customize the views, you can customize what information is required, you can add columns and many other things. The idea of SharePoint is that whatever you need it to be, whether you need to build a site for a team, for a project, for a department, or for an organization, SharePoint can be customized to do this. We're going to move into a different portion of SharePoint training. Although it's very similar, it's slightly more enhanced, and that's SharePoint libraries. SharePoint libraries are designed to hold actual documents. So I'm going to go ahead and add some content to a document library. Now, whenever you create a team site, by default, a document library is created automatically. And we saw a shortcut to that library not only on the Quick Launch along the left, but from the home page of the SharePoint site. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, moving into our SharePoint libraries. From the Browse button up at the top, this will give me a breadcrumb trail or access back to that home page. I'm going to collect on the Site button. This is the Home button, and this will always bring me back to the SharePoint home page. As I mentioned, here is our document library that we have listed along the home page. I can get to it by clicking on this hyperlink here, or from the Quick Launch, selecting Documents. Document libraries by default show the fields, the name of the document, who most recently modified it, and when it was most modified. I can add documents simply by dragging them into the desktop. So I can go ahead and click on a document, click and drag it and drop it right here. And that adds that document. So it makes it really simple to copy information from a shared drive or from your desktop directly into a document library. I can also create documents from SharePoint. So I'm going to go ahead and select New, and I can select Word Document. Now, this is going to launch Microsoft Word Online. This is the web-based version of Microsoft Word. But if I needed to get into the more advanced features of Word, I could actually have it open in the application. For this particular example, though, the online version works great. And I'd say for 80–90% of the things you do in Microsoft Word, Word Online is just good enough. It works just fine. So I'm going to just put in some random text here. My random text generator throws in some Latin into my Word document. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now, before I save it, I want to title this document. And one of my favorite portions of Word Online is that I can click into the document title and rename it. I'm going to just call it My Doc. Once I've clicked into that document title, it's renamed. And because this is a web-based application, it's automatically saved. So I don't have to worry about saving it. To move back to my SharePoint library, I'm going to use this link up at the top called SharePoint Sites. This moves me back to my document library, and I can see that I now have 2 separate documents in my library. Now, just like we did with lists, I can customize this view. I do this by going into the Library tab of the ribbon, into the Library Settings. Right? Here I can rename my document library. Maybe I want to call it Learn It Documents or Team Documents. Or if I scroll down, here I can add different columns of information or customize views, adding additional views. Document libraries can grow and get pretty overwhelming, so it's really nice to be able to sort and filter or have views already made to find the documents that are most important. If I click on the All Documents tab, it actually brings me to that view, just like we saw when creating the contact view. I can add things like when it was created, who it was created by, title name, what version of a document it is. So there's lots of ways we can customize this view, including things like sorting and filtering. But I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the bottom and say OK. And now I'll see that I also have who created the document and when the document was created. So SharePoint libraries are designed to hold documents, and as we can see here, it makes it really easy to customize and get that information that matters most to you. I can use the top headings to sort or filter. I can select or deselect or filter by who created the document. To move back to the SharePoint homepage, I'm going to go ahead and select this SharePoint site. And now that I do, I'll see that from my homepage, my document library is being displayed through this app part right on the homepage. And those documents that I created are available and listed. SharePoint libraries are such an improvement over traditional shared drives. Most of us have experienced shared drives that are filled with old data, stuff that's been long replaced by newer documents. SharePoint makes it much easier to manage content, in addition giving us the ability to access this data anywhere that we have a browser. So with SharePoint, you really have the ability to control how content within your organization is managed. SharePoint works well for small businesses of 2 or 3 people or large organizations with thousands of employees globally. So whether you're starting out with SharePoint or whether you've been using it, I encourage you to check out this newer version of Microsoft SharePoint and to sign up for classes at Learn It. We just scratched the surface on what SharePoint can do. There's many other things like workflows, document management, policy retention policies, and so on. So check out Learn It. I want to show you guys where to go to access our Learn It SharePoint classes. I'm going to go ahead and move you to the Learn It website. If you go to learnit.com, this is the home page of the Learn It site. And our SharePoint classes are under our technical training. I select technical training, and then right here in the center column under Microsoft Technologies, you'll see SharePoint. We have a number of different SharePoint classes from end user, information workers, all the way down to IT administrators, BI people, developers, and more. For those of you interested in learning a little bit more about SharePoint or maybe figuring out how you can make SharePoint work for you and your organization, I highly recommend signing up for our SharePoint 13 101 or 102 classes. We're offering a special, and if you sign up for one of our next running SharePoint classes, the SharePoint 101 or 102, we have some guaranteed to run classes on February 29th through March 1st. We're giving these at a 30% discount, and you can see it's going to end up saving you quite a bit of money. This is a great introduction to SharePoint if you've never used it, if you haven't ever had any experience with it. For those of you that have played around with SharePoint a little bit, maybe your organization has it, I highly recommend the Power User class. The Power User class is going to be running next on March 2nd through March 4th. It's a 3-day class. And again, this one as well is going to be discounted at 30%. For those of you that are interested in signing up, we'll have more information in our channel description. I appreciate you spending this time with me, learning a little bit about Microsoft SharePoint sites and how they might be able to help you. Again, remember the benefit of SharePoint is that you can manage your content in a much more efficient way, as well as giving people access to it anywhere that they have the internet. So whether they're working from their phone or their tablet, their Mac or their PC, they have access to all of the important information within an organization. For those of you with Office 365 licenses through your organization, you already have SharePoint. So find out how this could be helpful to you, your team, or your department. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Kara Clifford here in San Francisco. I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and look for more exciting webinars from Learn It coming up.